Setting destination to Space Australia.
Glad you made it to Space Australia in time. Let's do this collaboration now. Hello guys, welcome back to yet another video. Today I'm here with Geekdom. Please introduce yourself.
You just did. It's Geekdom. Why do I have to do it?
Come on, bro. Anyway, we're talking about Dragon Ball Super, the most talked about series in the Dragon Ball community because it's new and fresh and yeah. So, what are we talking about, Danny?
We're talking about Dragon Ball Super's target audience. Now, I'm not sure what you're going to title the video, but I'm guessing that's what it's going to be called?
Yeah.
Or is Dragon Ball Super for kids or for adults or whatever? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, alright. So, what are your general thoughts? What do you think is the main target audience? Like, off the top of your head, gun to your head, what is the main target audience for Dragon Ball Super?
Well, there's two, and it's not just the target audience for Dragon Ball Super. I would say it's the target audience for the entire Dragon Ball Renaissance, beginning with Battle of Gods, into Resurrection F, into the new video games, and now into Super. There's two audiences. One is, of course, shonen, young males, and females too, but mostly young males. I would say kids. And when I say kids, I don't mean like little kids. I mean like, usually like I would say 7, 8, 9, 10, even into teenagers, and also adults. But the second audience that people have to really understand is that Super is targeted for nostalgic fans of Dragon Ball from the original airing. In other words, people who are in their 20s and 30s who saw Dragon Ball when they were a kid, no matter what language or country you saw it in, whether it be the Toonami, whether it be in Australia, whether it be in Japan. That's what Dragon Ball Super is targeting, because the idea behind Battle of Gods, and I'm pretty sure I saw an interview, I think it was with, I don't know if it was Yamamura, but somebody on the production team was saying that the beautiful thing about Dragon Ball, the new movies, is that you can take your kids to go see them now. All the grown-ups that watched Dragon Ball in the 80s and 90s, a lot of them have kids. So I think those are the two big target audiences. Now, one thing I do want to specify, because a lot of people have been talking about this in the community for about a year now. They think that Super is not as bloody or as violent as Dragon Ball Z. And there is truth to that, yes. Now, that doesn't really have too much to do with the target audience at all. It has to do with the Japanese Prime Minister actually changing the laws on violence on television. So Dragon Ball Z, from back in the 90s and even old Dragon Ball, they look more violent because of that fact. But it doesn't mean that Super's not violent. Certainly we've had a lot of violent moments, especially in the Future Trunks arc. But also, the time slot is different. Dragon Ball Z used to air Wednesday nights at 7, prime time in Japan. Dragon Ball Super airs Sunday mornings at 9. So it's a kid's block, you know what I mean? As a result of it being a kid's block, it's going to be a little bit toned down.
I think Toriyama always pandered to kids with his manga, and I think, I think Toei is sort of driving the pandering to the nostalgic fans of Dragon Ball with scenes like the Piccolo death in the Resurrection F arc. That's a very iconic moment from the Saiyan arc. Reintroduced and animated, I guess, but just with a different sort of spin on it, for the nostalgic fans. But I saw an interview on Kanzenshuu about Battle of Gods, and originally in Watanabe's script there was going to be like a band of thieves stealing the Dragon Balls.
Yes, and it was replaced by the Pilaf gang.
Because Toriyama wanted to make it feel more like a reunion movie. So again, that's pandering to the people that actually saw Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball Z.
I like that. Yeah, and I thought it was a good move. I thought that was a good decision. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of Super is based on nostalgia. I mean, it really is based on nostalgia. But I remember saying this before Super even started. Before you and I even knew each other. This was like May of last year. I remember telling a lot of my peers who I was talking to back then, like your Black and Fist, Quamman, and Jay. Like, I only knew a few guys back then. I was telling them that, obviously Dragon Ball Super, Resurrection F, all these things are being, strengthened by nostalgia. Same thing with Star Wars The Force Awakens, Terminator Genesis, Ghostbusters, all these new, 80s, 90s things coming back or whatever. It's all about nostalgia. But the thing is, nostalgia is temporary. People have to understand this. Nostalgia, anything that's on nostalgia is only short term. It only succeeds on the short term, which means in order for Dragon Ball Super to succeed, it has to exceed expectations. It has to actually be good. That's the thing. Force Awakens could have been like a one-shot hit, but the fact that it was a good movie and made so much money, it wouldn't have made that much money if it wasn't a good movie, right? Same thing with Dragon Ball Super, in that, yeah, the first 3 arcs are not very good, and that's kind of bad, and because we're hardcore fans, we're watching it into the Trunks arc, and now it's getting better, but still, if this series continued to suck, it would end up being a flop. And I'll share this with you. I don't know if I'm ever going to rewatch those first 3 arcs again, except for maybe once or twice, like when the dub comes out, and maybe just once for leisure. But I'm probably never going to watch Battle of Gods or Resurrection F the arcs again, because it's just poor stuff that's unnecessary. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree with you. I probably won't watch those arcs again, except for the dub, obviously, when that comes out.
Yeah, just to see how it is, yeah.
Yeah. I really like the point you made about the nostalgia, and I think if they dropped Dragon Ball Super in 2015 without Dragon Ball Kai to get like the train going, I think it wouldn't have worked out, because you need sort of build up. You need to reintroduce kids and like adults in this case to Dragon Ball Kai, and then you need to drop Super. I think that's why Super is so successful, because kids in Japan have experienced Dragon Ball Kai, they know the story, they know the characters, because if Dragon Ball Super dropped without Kai, kids would be like, what the hell is this? Like, younger generations would have to do their homework, but Kai is there in place.
And that's what separates the hardcores from the casuals, in that if they will do their homework, or so if they care enough to. How about that?
Yeah. What do you think about some of the concepts introduced in Dragon Ball Super, stuff like the Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan forms, and God Ki in general? What do you think that's pandering to? Because it's obviously too confusing for like young kids.
Well, that's a good point, but also it's not the first time we've seen this. See, okay, like as far as the transformation goes, the God form, the red-haired God form, that one did get an explanation, okay? The blue one, we still don't really even know how Vegeta was able to do it. We didn't get a clear enough definition in the series. But this is not the first time Toriyama's done this. In fact, we never, ever got an explanation for how Goku got SS3. To this day, we don't know how. We never saw it. We don't know what kind of training he did. We don't know why Vegeta never did it. There's tons of unanswered questions even from back then. So I don't believe it's anything new. The thing about Toriyama is that, and I have a video coming out on this very soon, Toriyama as a writer doesn't really want his readers to get caught up in things like that, and he just wants you to kind of just enjoy it as best you can. Unfortunately, because we are thinkers and because we're humans and we're grown, we tend to overthink things. Now, I'm not excusing Toriyama, because poor storytelling is poor storytelling, and he certainly has had a lot of it in Dragon Ball Super. But what I'm saying is, him not explaining things is really nothing new. I mean, there's tons of things that really haven't been explained in Dragon Ball. Goten and Trunks being able to unlock their form to such a young age, not really explained. There's fan theories out there, but none of them really make that much sense. The time travel thing was a complete mess in Dragon Ball Z. So again, this is not the first time it's happened. I think Toriyama just wants the kids to enjoy the flashy fights and cool hair and the jokes. That's my idea of it based on how he writes. I do think, if you were to ask me, is he past his prime? I would say absolutely. I would say Toriyama's prime was probably from the Piccolo arc into the Frieza arc, and that was probably his prime. In my opinion, of course. You don't have to agree with me. And I think he got burnt out after that, because he did say during the Cell arc that he was close to wrapping things up. He was just getting exhausted, and, there was an interview where he said that. So you can just tell that things were starting to weigh down on him. So yeah, I do think he's past his prime, but I think that we need to understand that, yeah, it is a kid's show. It's supposed to be wacky, but we do have a right as fans to criticize if we have to. See, Japan is interesting, because Japan is okay with sex jokes and sexual humor in their animation, but yet they censor, like, penis and vagina and their porn. See, it's just Japan. Like, it's a different culture. There's a whole history behind it. In fact, if you look at the history, I think Rob explains in a video about this on his channel about why Japanese porn is censored. It's completely different than us. So, yeah. In other words, their culture, it's a different culture.
I agree, and that's just, you know, for fact. So, in Japan, Dragon Ball Super has sort of two target audiences, like we explained. It's sort of clusterfuck, you know, it's kind of pandering to both audiences in a way, which is good, which is fine, you know.
I think that's my theory. Yeah, that's my theory. They want to capitalize on the nostalgia and on the new people.
What do you think Funimation is going to do with Dragon Ball Super? Because we saw in, like, with Dragon Ball Kai, the promotions for that, it's like the hardcore, uncut, you know, Kai version just for, like, you know, adults, you know. So what do you think they're going to do with Super? How do you think they're going to market it?
I think it's just going to be new Dragon Ball. Like, I think it's going to be, hey, guys, we got new episodes of Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball's back. Like, they're not, I don't think they're going to say, like, Kai, Z, you know, any of that stuff. They're not going to say that. It's just going to be like, remember Dragon Ball? Remember Dragon Ball Z when you were a kid? Well, guess what? It's back. New episodes. They're going to target it to everybody, I think. They're going to do the same thing. What I am concerned about, though, and I think I've talked to you about this in the past off air, is those first two arcs. We're going to be hearing a lot of complaints again, the same ones that we had about those first two arcs. Why are they doing it? Why is the animation not so good? Why are there plot holes? We're going to hear the whole thing over again, and I wouldn't be against Funimation skipping those two arcs, but they're not going to do it. They're going to start from the beginning.
That's been the video, guys. Please go subscribe to Geekdom, even though every single one of my subs is probably subbed to Geekdom. But yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.